Hey folks, welcome back to the Evil Dungeon Master podcast. I am your host, the Evil Dungeon Master Vince. Hope you had a great weekend. It is Monday. Monday morning, back to work for most people. If you have a day off, wonderful. Today I got a question here that came in via Discord from Cornelius Prax. He wanted to know a couple things. So let's get right into it. You can go to theevildm.com if you want to contact me as well, and that'll give you information how to contact me. There's a contact form there. My email address is there, and all my social media is there, so you can get a hold of me, and we can have a conversation. Anyway, he says, other than the V&V original base rules, I don't know of any situation where people play themselves. The puzzle aspect of games is between a GM and a player, not the characters. The GM is not waiting for a character to figure out, he is waiting for the players to figure it out. If I have a Brain Dead Intelligence 3 character, I can roleplay that I'm a dipshit and a Jar Jar to the team, hindering their ability to figure it out. That sounds like fun. But if, for example, my current DC Heroes character has an intelligence or an intellect of 11, you know the system that the character is roughly 500 times smarter than you or I or anyone we ever known. MODOK level? Question mark. Intelligence is one thing that in RPGs that seem to be overlooked in all these types of situations. What I know and my ability is not the same as the character and what he knows. That is very true, because characters will know things that players don't know, and players know things that characters don't know, and it's kind of a metagaming situation back and forth. So, the GM can ask me to dodge a bullet or pick up a car, but somehow when it comes to intelligence, some games it seems to be GM versus player. I've heard in games players blurting out stuff that their characters couldn't possibly know. I try to stay on top of this and do a pretty good job of not allowing my personal knowledge to affect my characters. That's wonderful, and it's very hard to do that in a game, and I understand a lot of people have troubles doing that, and some people don't. I usually, when I role play and I'm playing a character, I try to think from my character's point of view, would he know this? Would he know that? Looking at if he has any type of skills or maybe a high intellect, maybe he has some type of degrees or something like that, or maybe background knowledge. If he's a farmer, he knows farming things. Maybe if he's a poison expert, he knows about poison. These are things that I have to consider when doing it. And if I know it as a player, I have to figure out, would my character, like I said, I have to figure out when a character would know it. And if they don't, I have to just keep my mouth shut. Anyway, with good players, that is an easy way to play it. The issue comes in with the GM. How do you keep on top of the situations where a character know way more than their player can even begin to comprehend? So basically, he's asking about GMs versus players or puzzles in your game, and how do you put them into the game, and how do you expect players to separate the knowledge from what they know in real life versus their characters in the game, and how their characters would know knowledge that the player doesn't know. This is a tough one. Whenever I make puzzles in my game, I try to put them so that the characters would know. So if there's a certain little puzzle in the game, I will try to make sure that the answer is in the room itself or in the dungeon itself. That is a better way to handle it. So if they are searching through a dungeon, you could have, for example, let's say I put a puzzle in with a phrase, and the phrase that pays, and remember that's an old radio thing, the phrase that pays. So if they're searching through a dungeon, maybe they find something on a wall that says the phrase that pays is today's one, and they're like, okay. They probably don't think anything about it. Another couple rooms go by, blah, blah, blah. Another couple rooms go by. Maybe even you end your session that week, or your gaming session that week, and then come back the next week and continue along in the dungeon. And then they find, like, another thing, like the phrase that pays 2. Okay. They're like, I think we've seen that before. And then maybe someone wrote it down, maybe someone didn't write it down. Now they start thinking, okay, this is weird. All right, whatever. Continue along. Maybe you have a couple battles, a couple things for that. And then they finally get to an area where there is a locked door, and there is possibly a key that they have to find, but there's a riddle on the door, and generally with the riddle you would have them figure it out. And like, what is the you've seen it before? It's a phrase that pays. I know it's a really bad riddle, but you've seen it before. It's a phrase that pays. Now, the characters could remember this, and the players could remember this as well, because they all saw it in character, and their character knowledge is to transfer to the player. So if a player wrote it down on their character sheet, then their character would know. Now, let's just say the players didn't write this down and don't remember this. There's still a chance that the characters will remember this if they have a higher intelligence. Now, for me, in gaming, when it comes to higher intelligence, I equate it to having a better memory. Not necessarily that you're smart or you're better than everybody else, just that you have a better memory of retaining information sometimes. So I will give them what I call a memory recall. And there's various ways I've done that. Like, you can roll a d20, and if you get over an 11, generally you remember it. That's for an easy thing. If it's something more difficult, I'll say a 15. And if their intelligence has a modifier on it, I'll let them roll the modifier to it. Other puzzles that I've done in the room are when they, for example, my campaign for the past weekend, 2 weekends ago, they went into a room where they had to get into it, and there was a puzzle of, look behind the open book. And then there was these various paintings in the room that they looked at, and all of them had a picture of a guy with a book. Some of them he was, posing with the book, just holding it. And then there was one that he had it with an open book in his hand reading. So after a few minutes of looking at it, they all talked and blah, 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 blah. They said, well, why don't you try the guy with the open book? So they went to that painting, and they opened that painting, like pulled it off the wall, and there was the key. Puzzles and things like that shouldn't be so hard that a player has to actually sit there and figure it out and Google it, in my opinion. It should be enough of a challenge that they have to discuss it, but figure it out within the time frame. Like, I know DMs that have put puzzles out there that are like legit riddles that you would have to like go online and figure it out, or have a really high intelligence, and people are not there for that. And yeah, maybe some people really, really enjoy that a lot, and hey, no sweat to them. But it should be something that they can easily, well, not easily, something they should be able to fix or find out when they're in the game. And it shouldn't take them that long. If they're sitting there for 20 minutes, 30 minutes trying to debate what this puzzle is, that's when you have to start as a GM, or start a DM, figuring out a way for them to get out of the situation. Maybe you start giving them hints. Something on the wall appears. Maybe an NPC comes wandering in and tells them about it, or a monster comes in and attacks them, and then he drops a fragment of a piece of paper with a word on it that he was stuck to his paw, if it's like a monster or something. Anything to get them out of the situation. I would say the puzzle, a good 10 to 15 minutes out of character time, and in character time should only be maybe a few moments. If you've seen movies with puzzles and things like that, when it comes to adventure movies and stuff like that, generally the heroes will figure it out within a good time frame. Yeah, it's a movie. They only have 2 hours generally to do these things, but when it comes to those things, it's kind of the same time frame as a game. So don't make the puzzles too hard, don't make them too easy, but make them so that they can figure it out and feel accomplished. Like I did with the, look inside an open book. They had books in there to look at, and they had these paintings, and they knew what to look at after a few minutes of looking around, searching, asking questions, which is normal, and debating what to do. So go ahead and do that. And Mr. Prax, I appreciate the question, and hopefully that answered something for you and gave you something to chew on and think about when it comes to GM versus player versus puzzles in your campaigns, or your DC Heroes campaign, or your D&D campaign, or whatever you're playing at the time. If you want to ask me a question, you can head on over to my website, theevildm.com, and you could leave a question there by going to the contact form, or just hit me up via social media, facebook.com/theevildungeonmaster, or on Twitter, theevildm, Truth Social, theevildm as well. Keep it original, keep it old school. Good night, and God bless everybody.